the size of the fish.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm taking a movie of it.
I appreciate you taking the movie, but that is not a fish you want to see. Allow me to explain. That is an oarfish, also known as the doomsday fish. These guys are rarely seen by humans, despite being a sea serpent that gets up to 30 feet long. And that's because normally they're found about a mile deep in the ocean. First the anglerfish and now this. And a lot of cultures around the world believe when they surface, that means something terrible is coming. That's why it's called a doomsday fish. In fact, 20 oarfish washed up on the shore of Japan in 2011, just before their infamous earthquake, which ended up being one of the most catastrophic in history. And 6 oarfish washed up on the shore of the Philippines in 2003, right before their earthquake. And this was the most recent sighting, which just happened on a beach in Mexico. Now, there is a lot of theories, such as the tectonic movements before an earthquake kill them, and then they surface before the earthquake hits. But there's also the theory that they're just the bringer of bad news. We don't need any more of that. Moral of the story, as cool as it would be to see one of these, this is not a good way to start 2025. And as always, follow for more facts.
Backrooms or liminal spaces, never wondered why they're so creepy? A guy emailed me and told me that there's probably something darker going on with those images and you shouldn't go looking for them. I got a spooky scary story time submission email from a guy who said that for the last 8 years he's worked as a market researcher, and usually this job is pretty straightforward. Basically, brands hire the company that he works for to conduct market research. So say it's a cat litter brand, and the cat litter brand is trying to figure out if this new cat litter is going to be appealing to consumers. The market research company will send out a mass email or call a bunch of people on their database and screen them to see if they want to come and participate in this study, and then in turn they'll get paid. The market research company will then go back to the brand and be like, this is what we found. And those kinds of studies are what this guy has done for the last 8 years. He said nothing out of the ordinary. It's just been like product testing, brand redesign feedback until this one study. He said sometimes brands keep their identity confidential to avoid bias. It's not that unusual. So when this one came in without a name attached, he didn't bat an eye. And the study didn't make sense to him because there was no product to test. There was no advertising materials to review. There was nothing to evaluate. All that they were supposed to do in this study was show a series of images to the market research participants. Just images, that's it. So he's like, okay. So it's not his job to find the participants. Somebody else in the company does that. But the night before, he is going through the images. They were already loaded onto their system and he's clicking through. And he said he was expecting to see some brand logos that he recognized or something familiar. But instead, it was just this odd string of images. All of the images were of places, odd, eerie, sterile environments. A dimly lit hallway with identical doors stretching forever. There was one of a hotel lobby that looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. An underground parking garage with spaces that stretch in every direction and all were unmarked. There were no people or no products placed in any of these images, and they didn't seem to have anything in common except that they left him with an unsettled feeling. There was no text, no captions, and he didn't understand what he was supposed to be studying, like people's emotional reactions. And if so, he didn't understand why this study specifically had such a rigorous screening process for the applicants that they selected. The brand or company that had set up this study wanted specifically people between the ages of 28 and 35 who had lived in at least 3 different states and had experienced deja vu. He said to give some context on why this was strange. Normally, studies select a wide variety of people from all different backgrounds because they want to understand a wide perspective. So the next day at work, before the study begins and they begin bringing in these participants, he asks his supervisor, like, hey, what's this study about? And the supervisor just says, I don't know. All we were hired to do was show these images and ask these people these questions. So this dude's like, okay, a paycheck's a paycheck. And the studies lasted 1 hour, and they would bring these people in and sit them in front of a large screen one by one and show them these images. The questions that they were supposed to ask seemed normal at first. They would be like, does this place remind you of anywhere? How does this image make you feel? But then they got stranger. It would be like, did you notice anything move? If there was a door in this image, where would it lead? And finally, when was the last time you remember seeing this place? And he said the last question was the one that made people stop. Like almost all of them started to say never, but then they would stop and hesitate. And then they would be like trying to remember where they saw that place, but they could never remember where they saw it. One man in the study, he said, laughed and was like, this has to be a joke, right? Like I dreamed of this place last week. And he said in the 8 years he's been doing this, in the whole time, there's never been anybody that's walked out of a study until this one. There was this one image of an office and all the chairs were turned away from the camera. And one woman saw the image and she got visibly upset and stood up. Dimly lit lighting, and she apparently saw the image and she looked at him and said, I don't think I'm supposed to be seeing these. And she got up and said, I can't complete this study. And she walked out. One man stopped him and said, when have you shown me these before? And he's like, well, that would be impossible. I've never met you before. And the man said, then why do I know what's on the other side of that door? A lot of people looked visibly upset when they left the study, and they would collect their check and walk out. And so after like 2 or 3 days of them doing this study, he went up to his supervisor and was like, I think something is wrong with this study. Like, this is visibly disturbing these participants. Just tells them again, like, I don't know which company this is from. I don't know why they're asking. That's not our job to find that out. Like, all we're supposed to be doing is collecting the information that they want and sending it back to them. Like, and the third day was the last day that they were doing this study, but then a new instruction was added. At the end of each participant study, each participant was handed a piece of paper and told to write down what they remembered about the images. When they were done, they were instructed to collect the images and then, without reading them or copying them or putting them anywhere, to put them in a shredder in front of the people who wrote them. He said he will never forget the look on some of these people's faces. Some looked panicked, some looked confused, some asked him why he did that. He said he didn't have an answer to give them and it was just part of the study. Doesn't know what results were found from that study because no conclusions were drawn. They just shared what they found with the brand, the confidential brand, whoever paid for, and that was the end of it. He doesn't know what they were looking for, but he says he doesn't think that that answer is meant to be found. At the end of his email, he said he wanted to be clear that this was not a medical study. The company he works for does strictly market research for products and product testing and advertisements. He said he knows this email was long and it sounds unbelievable, but he swears it happened. And he said that each participant was paid $150 for an hour of their time. And he doesn't know what happened to any of them, but he did end his email with a warning. And it said, I beg of you, if you ever come across a series of images like this, if you're ever asked to participate in anything like this, you should absolutely not do it. He said, I don't know what happens if you look too long. I don't know what happens if you remember too much, but I don't think it's good. If you're curious about liminal spaces and backrooms, seriously, just type in the search bar, like liminal spaces or backrooms. Like, the images are creepy. And I don't know why they leave us with that feeling, but clearly there's a brand out there who wants to know too.
You guys, what the fuck? I just found the creepiest thing in the entire world in my bathroom, and I'm kind of freaking out because I don't know where it came from. So I'm in the bathroom getting ready, right? And my housekeeper was here, and I'm very close with her. I look down on top of where I keep my my cotton pads and stuff. There's something weird and brown sitting on top of the jar, and I look at it. It almost looks like a sugar cube at first. Then I get closer. That is a human tooth. That is a human fucking tooth. That is a goldish, yellowish human tooth. So I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I've never known my housekeeper to have a tooth that, first of all, comes out, and second of all, that she pops out from time to time. But she passes by me, and I'm like, hey, is this yours? Like, don't forget it. And she's like, no, Amanda, that's not mine. I thought it was yours. That's why I put it there in case it's important to you. And I was like, what do you mean that's not yours? What do you mean? I'm like, that's not true. That has to be yours. Are you kidding? She's like, no, Amanda, I swear to God, she's like, I found it. I'm like, where did you find that? She said, yeah, it was sitting on the counter right next to that jar. I need you to understand, I don't know anyone in my life that has a tooth that can come in, come out. Second of all, no one has been here that would have the opportunity to be removing teeth. No, this is actually concerning. Where did that come from? Because I am in that bathroom all the time and I'm very clean. I would notice if there was a tooth sitting on my counter. She said she found it right on the counter next to that jar. I open that jar every night to take out a cotton pad to do my face. Who was in my house? You're telling me someone broke into my house and removed their tooth and left it there? Because that was not there before. She found it on the counter. Guys, I'm actually getting kind of scared. That's the weirdest, creepiest thing. What do I do? What do I do? What would you do if you were in my shoes right now and you found a really creepy human tooth on your counter that was not there yesterday? Did someone, it's the dentist burglar? What? I'm at a loss for words right now. I don't know what to do.
Hold it right there. My friend, this one, we have to talk about it because this is not the first time this issue of teeth is occurring. Like in this episode here, we also had issues like this one. People finding randomly teeth in different places or a tooth, someone's tooth. Now that keeps me wondering, is this real? Is this witchcraft? Or what's going on? Or ghosts have teeth and it's now time they are shedding their teeth. This is crazy stuff. Could it be the reason as to why sometimes you might find yourself eating and you wonder, why did that food finish so fast? Maybe the ghosts were there munching with you and that's how they leave their teeth. Anyway, my friends, all this is for entertainment purposes. And your comments and your thoughts about all these videos is what really matters in this channel. So tell us down below what you think about it. The rest of videos has passed. Interesting, good vibes videos, you see? I'd like to know what you think about all of them so far and anticipate more great stuff coming up your way. See, let's continue together and spread good vibes from wherever you are. Hit that like button.
This is not actually what the northern lights look like. Let me explain. This photo was taken by a professional photographer with a professional camera, and in case you haven't figured it out by this point in your adult life, our eyes don't see that well at night. So you're not actually going to see this. Does that make it any less epic? No, absolutely not. I adjusted the settings on my iPhone to try and find something that's the closest to how I saw it with my own eyes. Your iPhone can take better pictures than this. This is just for educational purposes only. So I think the biggest differences for me, one was the color. Obviously, this is a lot less vibrant than you see in the professional photos, and that's just because our eyes cannot see color that well at night. So it's not that the color isn't there, it's just we can't see it. The second difference I would say would be the sharpness. So our eyes don't see these columns as defined as the professional photo might. They're just slightly blurred, but still really visible and beautiful. Disclaimer, this was from a very high activity night, so not every night's gonna look like this. I would highly recommend spending a week in the destination that you're trying to see the northern lights, so that way you have multiple tries. Going with a tour guide is also super helpful, especially if the weather's crap. They're very good at finding gaps in the clouds, so you can hopefully still see the northern lights. I went a couple nights after this and the weather was totally crap. Did not expect to see anything, but we ended up seeing a pretty good show, so don't give up hope. And if you need any other tips, let me know.
Okay, this guy has been saying how consciousness works for over 30 years, 40 years, and someone's finally listening to him. I'm going to sound as smart as I possibly can and not butcher this. Prayers. So Stuart Hamroth has a theory called OR theory of consciousness. He came up with this theory with Roger Penrose, who is a literal Nobel Prize winner and mathematical physicist and philosopher of science. So what the heck is OR theory? It basically says that consciousness arises from quantum processes in the brain, specifically in something called a microtubule. These microtubules act as quantum computers, well, biological quantum computers. Without getting too much into it, inside the microtubule, there is a tubulin. It has different charge poles, I believe positive and negative on each side of the tubulin. This creates some type of electron dust cloud, which is where the quantum processes happen. The weird thing is, this already happens in nature, and I think it kind of already proves this theory. The aurora borealis. So in the aurora borealis, charged particles from the solar wind are directed by Earth's magnetosphere or magnetic field. They go towards the polar regions, which is why we see the aurora borealis in chilly climates. The particles collide with atmospheric gases, which cause the aurora borealis. This is also plasma. More on that in a moment. So plasma is the reaction. Now, to validate Stuart's theory even further, they recently made a nuclear fusion machine that is completely different than most in New Zealand. They're called Open Star Technologies, and they utilize what is called a levitated dipole configuration, mimicking what the aurora borealis is. A superconducted magnet is levitated within a spherical chamber, creating a magnetic field that confines a plasma of ionized gas. Magnetic field confines and stabilizes the plasma. Don't worry, this will go back to the OR theory. And then that is what makes controlled nuclear fusion reactions. Once again, in the middle, we have the aurora borealis, or a plasma. Levitated dipole configuration. In these little tubulins right here, in the microtubule, this is basically the different charged dipoles, and in the middle, the electron dust cloud, what they theorize is happening with these quantum processes, that is the levitated dipole, I believe. And what is going on between it, I believe, is a plasma reaction, an inner aurora borealis of the brain. Now, little sidestep. I have a theory that plasma is the vehicle or holds consciousness. This, if it's true, confirms my theory. You can check out my other videos, my plasma intelligence playlist, to learn more why I think this. Something that also randomly just happened this year, which is also helping my theory, is the plasmoid uptick, the UAPs being seen in New Jersey and all over. Theoretically, people are thinking that these plasmoids are carrying some type of consciousness, or are holding consciousnesses from other dimensions. Very similar to the mythology of Chariot of the Gods, where these balls of light, or in mythology, these chariots with horses that are ridden by gods. It's a very interesting connection that this kind of ball of light carries consciousness, or the gods. But forget all that just for a second. To build more on Stewart's OR theory, Stewart actually published a paper in 1983. He's an anesthesiologist, and he basically did experiments with what you could call a electron dust cloud, or this hypothetical plasma cloud within the microtubule, and the findings were insane. So basically in the test, they applied anesthesia first to rats, but then they took the rats away because it's a thing called Kirlian photography, which is kind of like aura photography. They noticed that the aura, which is plasma, or what you would call a corona discharge, was being affected by the anesthesia. So they took the rats away and they just focused on the corona discharge, which is a plasma, and how it was affected by anesthesia along with consciousness of rats or humans. So anyway, this was anesthesia applied to the corona discharge, or this plasma. This was with, I believe, no anesthesia, just oxygen. This was with a smaller amount of anesthesia. And then this was with a bigger amount of anesthesia. The white dots are the plasma, so you could see that it dwindles as anesthesia is applied. This is the same as what happens when someone's consciousness, whatever consciousness is, they both go down. Basically what Stewart told me is when they applied the anesthesia to the plasma, it is the same effect as if they applied the anesthesia to a rat's consciousness or a human's consciousness. Basically proving that there is some kind of synergy or relationship with plasma and consciousness affected the same way from anesthesia. I hope that made sense. To me, basically that shows that they're both affected together. So there's some type of synergy there. Corona discharge considered a type of plasma. There you go. Whew. So now back to OR theory. So now we know that Open Star Technologies' fusion reactor and the Aurora Borealis is doing the same thing that Stewart is theorizing and Roger Penrose is theorizing is happening in microtubules. There's that same electron dust cloud, that corona discharge, that plasma field. Now the only question is, how do we find out if consciousness is actually arising in that? So funny thing about the OR theory. So Roger Penrose introduced objective reduction, which is the OR part of the theory. In this, he said that a quantum state collapses due to fundamental space-time geometry, basically meaning this electron dust cloud between the dipoles and the microtubule connects to space-time geometry. He also suggested that a consciousness arises from this collapse, a spark from the quantum world. A spark? You mean the Aurora Borealis spark? This could also infer that when there is an Aurora Borealis spark or plasma spark, it is touching the deepest levels of this space-time, or well, the deep level of space-time geometry. Kind of when an electron releases a photon, let's just say consciousness is light, the spark of life. Maybe the Aurora Borealis is a wonderful hint at touching the depths of space-time geometry by this fluorescent glow. And the glow, the spark, means we're touching the space-time geometry, which is what's also happening in the microtubule. So when these computations collapse, like he said in OR, they produce a conscious experience. This is almost like they're reaching into space-time geometry through this plasma wormhole electron dust cloud, pulling out some kind of consciousness and putting it in the head. Or we're sensing our environment. Our consciousness is working with this plasma cloud inside our microtubule, and then it's feedbacking with space-time geometry, which would explain how one person can change the world, or how our thoughts create matter, because our thoughts are literally touching space-time geometry. I think that's what's happening, and this makes so much sense. Basically, OR theory is revolutionary because it ties together physics and biology, specifically quantum biology and consciousness. It could literally show how everything is connected. For instance, when someone meditates and they're in a state of bliss, maybe that's their consciousness syncing with space-time geometry. Or dare I say it, the gateway to the collective unconscious. That would mean if someone, let's say, takes mushrooms and their logic goes away and their consciousness is more synced with those deeper levels, the same thing that can happen in meditation. That is why they see these fantastical things. Because they might see fractals when they're experiencing bliss because plasma's fractal. See? There's even a book on when you're on this or have these kind of experiences where they see fractal beings. Space-time geometry syncing with your consciousness through plasma. So the biggest problem other people have with this theory is they think because the brain is warm in a wet environment that decoherence will happen, or quantum states will collapse too quickly, so this is like all impossible, but they're silly. Here's why. So they're assuming that quantum states require isolated low temperature environments. Psh. In physics, plasma is a state of matter with free moving ions and electrons. They can exhibit coherent collective behaviors despite chaotic environments. If the brain contains regions like microtubules where quantum states interact through a plasma-like electron dust cloud, this plasma could actively maintain coherence. How, you ask? They're literally doing it with a fusion reactor. It uses an electron dust cloud to stabilize the high energy plasma environment. It's preventing decoherence. It enables sustained interactions. This is what a microtubule is doing, y'all. You just have to figure out how to prove consciousness is happening. This coherence in this warm, wet environment, all because of plasma, allows quantum interactions in microtubules. This is literally how consciousness could arise. This electron dust cloud or plasma can act as a medium that stabilizes and organizes these quantum states. This could create a feedback loop between the space-time geometry and our own individual consciousness. Basically, Roger Penrose and Stewart predicted the future like 40 years ago. Now I'm coming in with this plasma thing that they already had and expanding on it.
So I just found out about Drop 45 Lane. Did you know about this, you guys? Because I sure didn't. It's an archaeological site found at the Great Lakes. I didn't know this, but I guess the Great Lakes aren't super ancient. They're younger than Stonehenge, which means that humans were living and present in this region before these lakes even existed, and were also there while these lakes were actively forming, which is kind of nuts to think about. And before the lakes were formed, the area was kind of like this boggy tundra where humans hunted, lived, and traded across thousands of miles. The problem is, today, the land around the Great Lakes is so acidic that anything that ever existed more than 1,000 years ago has completely disintegrated by now. But inside these lakes, it's a different story. The water of the Great Lakes is like the ash in Pompeii. It preserves everything and keeps everything intact. So underwater archaeologists have found entire homes, tools, and hunting gear left untouched for millennia. 120 feet below Lake Huron's surface, and that site is called Drop 45 Lane. It shows evidence of some of the earliest humans to live in this area, but also opened up a whole can of worms and mystery about this place. For example, the first what the heck moment came from the artifacts themselves. A lot of these artifacts were rock tools like arrowheads and spears that were made out of different stones and obsidian. The thing is, the chemical composition of the volcanic glass that this obsidian is made from indicates that it's coming from a mountainous region in Oregon, more than 2,500 miles away on the complete opposite side of the country, implying that there was a massive cross-country trade network more than 10,000 years ago. This alone made archaeologists scratch their head and raise a lot of questions about who these people were. Then it gets more intriguing. The reason why it's called the Drop 45 Drive Lane is because they literally found like this stone lane or driveway underneath the water. They found this stone-lined lane that the hunters would use to lure animals towards them. It was kind of like a trap. This was already a really exciting find to just see this formation, but then archaeologists got even more excited because then they realized where they had seen this before. Up until this point, this hunting technique was only found in the Arctic. So what was it doing all the way in North America? And then underwater archaeologists find this, what they are naming a Stonehenge-like structure under Lake Michigan. I think I'm gonna have to do a separate video on that.
What happened? What happened to society, yo? To think that they actually took the time to manufacture cars like this. Body frame alone on this car looks like it belongs on a comic book, like a movie set. A 1947 Cadillac Series 62. This is the Monopoly's man car. This is what they was really doing in 1947? 1947. I gotta showcase the beauty of this car because there's a pattern that's going on with the content that I'm dropping. A lot of the shit is diluted now. All of these products are diluted, everything. There's no sense of pride anymore in people's work and their crafts, no creativity. Everything nowadays is about consumerism. How fast can we get the product out there? A But look at this damn car, yo. If I ever start collecting cars, it's gonna be something like this. It gotta be. That goes to show you where we were at as a society at this time. I wonder how long it took to make this car. But this is the thing. It was about slow living back then. Quality over quantity, my people. Quality over quantity. I'm nervous to look up the prices of these cars, if they even still around like that. Probably taxing an arm and a leg so you could get something like this. But best believe this shit is beautiful. Beautiful.
Yo, my friends, that's just fantastic, artistic, magnificent. It's incredible good vibes. So, you see, looking at such a piece of vehicle, you see, that was created and designed by good vibes humans. Not these ones are probably people's ancestors, or if they exist, grandparents, you see, that did such a good and beautiful work. Very lovely, my friends, you see. And for us, that we are now at this time here, watching this video, we can also do some great work that will be remembered by those that will come after us. And the work, my friend, is very easy. You can do it at the comfort of your home, spreading love, peace, honesty, forgiveness, and unity, which is our message here, my friend. And through the videos, just like the ones you have seen, we always spread that message in good vibes ways. You see, I hope you've left your comments down below. You've hit that like button and help us in increasing the numbers, my friend. And that way, good vibes will come your way. You see, now there's something I'll also share with you for being a good vibe soul from Psalms. Yeah, from Psalms 114. When Israel came out of Egypt, the house of Jacob, from a people of foreign tongue, Judah became God's sanctuary, Israel his dominion. The sea looked and fled, the Jordan turned back, the mountains skipped like rams, the hills like lambs. Why was it, O sea, that you fled, O Jordan, that you turned back? You mountains, that you skipped like rams, you hills like lambs. Tremble, O earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob, who turned the rock into a pool, the hard rock into springs of water. Interesting, my friend. The creator or this mighty entity that the book is talking about, the one that we here really acknowledge and are always asking for help from, my friend. You see, we believe up to this point, my friend, is because of that mighty creator. So let's give thanks to this maker, my friend, as we wrap up the show. Dear Lord Father, full of mercies and kindness, come before you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. We thank you for this far, Father. We thank you for the words we've read from the book of wisdom, Father. May these words, Father, be used to water our souls, Father. Give us strength through them, Father. Give us a different understanding of that word, Father. In that way, dear Lord, all glory and honor shall return unto you. Thank you for your child that we've been with today's viewer, Father. Thank you for their lives. Thank you for the blessings that you've passed to them, Father. Thank you even for the forgiveness of their sins, Father. Dear Lord, always guide them in your paths, Father, and uplift their souls. As you do great things for them, Father, include us, dear Lord, for you are worthy and full of praise. In your holy name, Jesus Christ, we do pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Till next time, good vibe soul, peace and love be with you. Bye bye. Good vibes.